So I thought if you can narrate in your own words as to in the early years, I believe you were born in 1944. You had the education in Madras Christian College. And in early years, what is it that you remember the most in that period that shaped the way you grew up? And
I am from what you may call it as a lower middle class family of India, with a village background, Tamil medium school up to standard 11. A family which had just about can meet both ends meet. 4 children, father in the government service as a clerk, and then later on he became an officer. Mother a housewife. So all this setting is really conducive for value creation, value building, value systems. You grow up with shortages, you grow up with wanting to have something but can't have it. You grow up with correct principles. You grow up with honesty and integrity. In fact, I remember for the first 6 years or 5-6 years of my school, I didn't go to school for the first 5-6 classes because my father was getting transferred every 3 years because of government job, and could not settle down in one place. So my father decided to teach me at home. So for the first 5 years of normal schooling, I was actually taught at home by my father. As soon as he comes back from the office at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he will sit with me for 3-4 hours before I go to play. So when I joined Madras Christian College in 1959 for pre-university, that is post 11th standard, I did not know a single word of English. I did not even know how to converse. And I had to compete with people and Madras Christian College is known for its English standard of English and English language and so on and so forth. And medium of instruction of Madras Christian College was obviously English. But then, to my great satisfaction, at the end of the year, I was one of the few, or probably the only one, if I recall correctly, a boy who scored distinction in advanced English.
wow.
It is something which I will never forget, because it's something which I did not expect. So for something which you have to really work hard, because you came from a negative situation of not knowing a single word of English and to how to converse, to a situation where in a place like Madras Christian College, in a university examination, you scored the highest. So that was a kind of life that was there. And Madras Christian College taught me many things. But most of the value systems and values in life and integrity and honesty and simple way of living came from my parents. My father was actually a very competitive person. Even though he did not achieve great things in his profession, he was extremely competitive and extremely straightforward. And he was a Gandhian, he was a nationalist person. And he will say, if I had not attended a national NCC program, even one day he will ask me as to why did he not attend. So that is the kind of person he was. That's how I grew up.
Great. And from there you went on to IIT in metallurgy. Then you did your management from XLRI and subsequently in France. So how did these post-school education influence your, let's say, personality and character?
Each of these institutions taught me something or the other. In IIT Madras, for example, for the first time, I came across students from other parts of this country. There were people from Orissa, there were people from Uttar Pradesh, there were people from Punjab and J&K and all over the India. In fact, the number of boys from Tamil Nadu was one of the least in the total number of 120 odd people that we had. And it was for the first time that I experienced India, so to speak, as a country, rather than Tamil Nadu as a state or a Madras as a state. XLRI taught me other things. XLRI taught me, what is meant by a business corporation. Fortunately for us, XLRI was located in Jamshedpur. It was located in the heart of a town which was the centerpiece of industrialization of India, where industrialization of India started more than 100 years ago. So that was the atmosphere in XLRI. But the institute which really taught me, I went to, of course, set up. It was a beautiful place where you met international students, where you had a multinational exposure. But the institute, the education program that taught me the maximum, or made the maximum impact on my life and my personality and my thinking, is a program called Challenge of Leadership at INSEAD, conducted by Professor Manfred Ketwrice, who was the world's leading psychoanalyst in Europe and who had consulted many European companies at that point in time. Challenge of Leadership is a program where you look at yourself, you introspect, you reflect, and you find out what you need to do. My developmental programs of personality development and individual development actually came from the learnings that I had from Professor Manfred, with whom happily I am still in touch. He is probably 90 or maybe around that figure, or maybe even higher than 90. Amazing person. And I think of all the institutions that I've attended, where I have sort of learned a lot of things from these institutes and the atmosphere that prevails in this institute, the one that I value most is the one that I got from Challenge of Leadership under Manfred.
So this institute which made tremendous impact on you, at what stage in your business career you were when you went to this institute?
Actually, XLRI I went very early when I joined Tata Steel. I joined Tata Steel in 1966. I finished training in 68. I think I joined XLRI in 70 and passed out in 73. The Challenge of Leadership program I attended much later, just a few weeks or few months before I became the managing director of Tata Steel. And in some ways it was appropriate at that time because anything too early I may or not have learnt, and that was absolutely the right moment of time. Then I needed some inputs from Challenge of Leadership, which I got at INSEAD through Manfred Ketwrice.
And then in 1966 you joined Tata Steel. So what made you join Tata Steel? Is it that you had something fascination for steel, or is it something else?
In fact, quite frankly telling you, there are not many opportunities in those days. There are very few opportunities. In college, in IIT Madras, I was what is called a steel cadet. Those days, Hindustan Steel, as SAIL was called at that time, had a program called Steel Cadets to attract young engineers and young metallurgists to the steel industry. So they selected on the basis of some criteria, merit and marks and so on and so forth. So I got selected for SAIL. So that's how I knew about steel plants. I did not know about steel plants earlier. And I was a reasonably good student. In fact, I was one of the very good students in IIT Madras Metallurgy group. And through my professor, one Professor E.G. Ramchandran, I got admission to University College of Los Angeles in the United States at a scholarship of $400 a month. Around the same time, in the final year when I was there, I also got an offer from Tata Steel after they interviewed me for a job of graduate trainee of Tata Steel at 400 rupees per month. So there was this 400 rupees per month offer, and there was this $400 per month offer. So I had very easy choice to make. I said I will join University College of Los Angeles and go to study material science masters. And in any case, that was a thing which was Professor Ramchandran had helped me to get that position there. So I thought he would be very happy to sort of ask me to go there. So I went to meet him. Sir, I said, I'm going to accept this offer and I'm going to reject Tata Steel. He made me sit there with him in his room for 1 hour. And he told me as to why I should not go abroad, as to why I should join Tatas and Tata Steel. He said Tatas are a good company. Steel industry is going to flourish in India. We need good people in the steel industry. So I wanted to go to Jamshedpur and join Tata Steel. After about a conversation lasting 1 hour, I threw up that offer of UCLA. I rejected it and I joined Tata Steel. That's how I joined Tata Steel. In fact, if I owe my career to anybody, It is actually Professor E.G. Ramchandran of IIT Madras.
Wow, that's a great story. During the early years of what you did explain in your childhood education at home, your father, do you relate these things that happened during that period till your education and before joining Tata Steel? Anything that we know about TQM today, you see any correlation between that?
You know, quality is something which has been in the air, I would say, for most of our lives. That your parents told you to do things correctly, things well. Your college told you. They may or may not have used the word quality, but it is intrinsic in whatever they asked you to perform, in whatever they asked you to do. Like, for example, a simple thing. My father was a perfectionist, in the sense that if I got a 95% mark in some subject, he will say, "What happened to the 5 marks?" He will very seldom ask me about how did I get 95 marks. So that 5 marks was important for him. So with the sense that there is a sense of completeness that you are expecting. But in a very formal way, TQM or quality movement as to what is really meant by quality, how does quality get inculcated in a product or in a process or in an organization or in a country, is something which people had not given it a great deal of thought till the Japanese influence came to India. That's what I would say. Even though it may have been there somewhat unsaid in many things, in many walks of life that we may have gone through.
Great. So then your career in Tata Steel, first on the shop floor, then in marketing, then head of marketing, then ultimately becoming the managing director of the company. How would you describe this journey in the context of your professional career, your building of your personality and quality?
You know, if one looks back at what my 48-year career in Tata Steel has been, I realize that it is extremely important for everybody to start at the operating level. Whether it is plant, whether it is maintenance or operations, whether it is quality control, whether it is marketing or whether it is sales, executives need to grind their nose on the ground for some years before they start appreciating what is meant by managing a company. So which is why I am somewhat not entirely in favor of what is so called as business schools, where people are made to believe that you can become a good CEO in 5 years time and 10 years time, and overnight you can become a CEO. It doesn't happen like that, and it cannot happen. And you cannot have the right appreciation of what is happening in a company or in a corporate world unless you have rubbed your nose on the ground as a shop floor person. I started in the blast furnace department in shifts. 6 shifts of morning, 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock, or 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock, or 10 to 6, and then overnight night shift. So that's what I have done for some years in my life. Then I moved to engineering division, then I moved to marketing and so on. So one lesson is that everybody, however brilliant or whatever may be the background of his knowledge or education, must go through the drill of going through the operating experience for some years before he is pushed up to any other place where the management thinks is a good place to be for that person to be in. The second thing that I have found is that I have learned that knowledge is important, but knowledge is not all. There are some characteristics which are required, and those characteristics come from experience of different kinds. Operations teach you some experience, some angles. Marketing teaches you certain other dimensions of your personality. project management teaches you another dimension of your personality. So these are required for assembling a package which you may call as manager or a senior manager or a general manager or a managing director one day. So that is important for somebody to go through those experiences rather than a completely unidimensional person.
That's very interesting. So while at Tata Steel, I remember they started the JRD Quality Values Award. And then you had a CI Business Excellence Award, and Tata Steel was the first company to win both these awards. And then later on, you started on the TQM journey. So how do you relate this differential in your journey from JRD Quality Value, I think started in 93, 94 time frame, and CI started a couple of years later, and then you came to Deming journey in early 2000s. So how do you relate to these three different approaches?
You know, the Tata Steel's formal journey in terms of quality movement started actually sometime late 80s. When my predecessor, Dr. Irani, led a CIA delegation to Japan and came back almost sort of reincarnated back to Tata Steel, where he came and started talking about quality. And we were all wondering as to why this man is talking about quality today when we know what is quality. We actually did not know what is quality. That is the starting point of the first roots of quality. We started quality circles at various departments. Then we had a program called Total Operating Performance, which was being run by McKinsey at that time, or which was being marketed by McKinsey at that point of time, where, let's say, a job is being done in 10 hours in a department, and you assemble people of the department, concerned people, and say, they have a conversation around what can you do about that process. That conversation comes down to deciding that instead of 10 hours, we can actually do it in 6 hours. Now, whether there is a scientific basis or not, I don't know. Often there was no scientific basis. Later on, scientific basis developed and started looking at, let us see what Nippon Steel does, or let us see what POSCO does and how many hours they took for the same job and so on. But the starting point was not that. Starting point just was imagination. Starting point was just aspiration, saying that we should try and do this job in 6 hours when we are taking 10 hours. Then you try and see how to do it in 6 hours. So this is the process of the total operating performance. This is the process of thinking about as to how to improve things. We had an yield of 90% from a particular product. Then you imagine as to how can you improve it to 95%. Then you start thinking about it. Slowly, this product related or a cost related improvements were the first things to be attempted in this quality journey. Then we said, if you didn't have a good process, you can't achieve good quality. So you should have processes, good processes, whether it is a manufacturing process or whether it is a maintenance process or whether it is a people process, whether it is a people development process, whether it is a management decision-making process. So this quality thing started getting, shall we say, importance in other areas of process, which is even more fundamental than the final product. So that's how this journey started taking place. And when Mr. Ratan Tata became the chairman in 1992 of the Tata Group, after 3 or 4 years, he started this JRDQE award thing. And I remember the JRDQE award is somewhat similar to Malcolm Baldrige Award of the United States, where Malcolm Baldrige, who was, I think, used to be the Secretary of Education of the United States, had conceived of this as a means of nullifying what the Japanese have, tried to do in those areas. So it had 7 or 8 chapters, and it had strategy, it had customer orientation, it has marketing, it has process, it has process control and variety of things. So in which you are to say as to how you are doing and somebody judges you whether you're doing the right thing or not doing the right thing, or how far extent you're doing the right thing. Now, I remember the first year when Tata Steel applied for the JRDQ award, we got 201 marks. We got 200 marks out of 1,000 marks. So we thought we were actually doing quite well. It took us some 8 years. We finally won the JRDQ award in 2001. In the year I took over, and in the year, more importantly, in the year Dr. Irani retired in 2001. It was, I would say, his work of the previous 10 years that brought us that JRDQ award. Then we focused even more. Then we started talking to Japanese because we always believed, and I definitely believed, that this word quality and the real meaning of quality, the Japanese understand it better than anybody else in the world. And therefore, and so it is only appropriate that Dr. Irani's led CIA team went to Japan and met the JUICE, Japan Union of Scientists and Engineers, in 1989 or 88. We started contacting them. The consultants came, then Dr. Kano came, and slowly, then we said, when I took over in 2001 as the MD of Tata Steel, one of the things that we wanted to do is to, now that we have won the JRDQ prize, now that we have won the EXIM award, now that we have won several awards on quality, we should be good enough to apply for Deming Award. So we wanted to apply for Deming Award, and then we said, let us do a dipstick of the Deming Award. So we called some Japanese consultants, and they had a look at Tata Steel, and they spent some 3 months, and then they told us that you are no good. So we were quite upset, and I actually thought that something not okay. But then we realized that, look, there is a way to look at this quality, and Deming is probably correct. So we really worked for the next 4 years in every single aspect of the company, whether it is the human resource processes, or whether it is manufacturing processes, our marketing processes, or customer orientation processes, or customer development processes, customer acquisition processes. And we try to fix these processes in the way that ultimately the customer is satisfied. Because the customer is the only yardstick for quality. Because till 1990, in Tata Steel, for example, the quality was, as long as you conform to some written down specification, you are fine. Sometimes it is not even written down specification. Then we slowly, gradually moved to cost, then we moved to productivity, then moved to something else. Then finally we moved, in fact, we started a campaign under Dr. Irani called Customer Har Hal Mein. That was actually the beginning of the realization that the quality movement has to be, the final aim of the quality movement is the customer. There is no other aim. There is no other aim at all. The customer is the single most important aim and the only aim that you need to have. So that's how this journey has been a very exhilarating journey in Tata Steel. And it is one of the prime factors, or if I may put it as the single most important factor in making Tata Steel from a company which was in a, if I may use the word, deathbed in 1990 to a world beater by 2005, 2010 or so.
It's a great explanation. Actually, I can relate to it because I worked in industry for 25 years, mostly the Western companies, and I thought we knew everything about management. I learned there. And that's why in early 80s when I started moving towards learning about what Japan is doing, and since you mentioned about Dr. Irani leading that delegation, I was the one responsible in terms of planning that trip. Because in 88, when I met Jewish people, I wanted them to help India, only on one condition. You bring your CEOs to Japan for a 5-day program. I was apprehensive. Which CEO will come for a 5-day program on TQM? But I took a challenge. I said, we'll make it happen. And fortunately, thanks to Dr. Krishnamurthy and Dr. Irani, Dr. Krishnamurthy took the lead since he was supporting me in all this, and Dr. Irani became very supportive. So we created this program, and Dr. Irani led this, and we had the first visit in 1989.